Grandma, when did your family move to River Edge? Was your home built by Jacob Reese? He built many of the colonials in the borough today.
We moved to River Edge on June the 2nd, 1941. The house was built by Reese. All the Manning Avenue houses were built by Reese. And they were 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom houses at the time.
What was River Edge like in the 1940s? Were the grocery stores in town at that time?
I remember my mother going to Hackensack to Packard's, but there was an A&P in River Edge on the north side of Kindercamack Road, but that's about all I know. There was also one down by the River Edge Railroad Station, an A&P, so that might be where she shopped. I was 12 years old when we moved there.
If you wanted to go shopping for your clothes, did you take a trolley or a bus to Hackensack?
We took a bus to Hackensack. It was the number 34 bus, I remember that.
What year did you enter Roosevelt School and who was the principal?
1941, September of 1941, and I think the principal was, I think it was Dr. Davis.
Okay.
Because it's the Holly M. Davis School was named after him down in River Edge.
After graduating from Roosevelt School, did you go to Hackensack High School?
Yes, I did. We took the bus. We got bus tickets from the town, and we took the bus. The 34 bus.
What different stores did you go to in Hackensack?
Well, Packard's, of course, and Sears was there too at the time. And there was a shoe store, Stenchevers, that I remember. Woolworths, I remember going after school to have an ice cream. There was
How much did ice cream cost?
Oh, it was cheap. I think we probably spent 25 cents we liked the sodas.
When you moved to Manning Avenue in 1940, what was it like?
Well, it was a dead end there. Fifth Avenue didn't go through. It was very rural, yet next to my parents' house there was a big, it was all fields, and they had, somebody planted string beans, big field of string beans, and the kids, I was young at the time, we picked the string beans and we got 25 cents a bushel for picking them.
Grandma, who were some of your neighbors on Manning Avenue that you remember?
Well, I remember the McIntoshes and McCullough, Sorensen down the street.
Grandma, can you tell the story about Officer Napperstack?
The one that comes to mind is we had a cat, and the cat was dead at the bottom of the hill at Manning Avenue, and my mother called the police, and he came, Mr. Napperstack, and he brought the cat up to the backyard and buried it in the backyard while he was singing a song, some kind of a song that he was burying something. Very nice guy.
Grandma, where did great-grandfather work and how did he get there?
He worked in New York City in the New York Telephone Company at 140 West Street, which was way downtown, and he walked from River Edge, from the top of Manning Avenue there, down to the River Edge Railroad Station and took the train to Hoboken, and then from Hoboken you got the ferry. A ferry cost a nickel at that time, and then when he got off the ferry, it was very close to where the building was that he worked.
Where was the post office?
I think the post office was down by the River Edge Railroad Station, that I remember.
Were there any doctors in town? What happened if you had to go to the doctor?
The only one I can remember is Dr. Gittleson, and I think he was pretty old then, but he was there on the corner of, I don't remember, on Kindercamack Road, almost across the street from the fire department. I had to go to Hackensack to the dentist. There was no dentist in River Edge when I was very young. There was one on Wayne Avenue and Kindercamack later on. I don't remember his name.
Grandma, can you talk about your job at Nystrom's?
Sure. I was in high school. Maybe I was even younger than that. I knew Mr. Nystrom from church, and so he did hire a lot of the young people from church. I was a waitress. We had a green uniform that we wore. It was a dress, and it was a very interesting and fun job. I worked on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, carrying dinners and taking orders for meals. It was fun.
How much money did you make?
Boy, I don't remember, but it was probably I'm thinking maybe 50 cents an hour, but it might even have been less than that. I'm not sure.
Friends?
Yeah, Marie Mackenzie worked with me, and Doris Schultes. She was Grenz later. There were boys there too, but I don't remember who they were. We often had times that we went out afterwards, after working, and had ice cream in different places in Hackensack.
Grandma, do you remember any of the teachers that you had at Roosevelt?
Well, Miss Tuzo is one. She was a history teacher, I think. And Mr. Shetty, I think that was his name. I don't remember what he taught, but he was a very strict teacher. Other than that, I don't remember.
Where did you and your parents go out to eat?
There weren't any restaurants in River Edge at the time, but we went up to Norwood to a place called Zinke's, which was wonderful. And a meal was $1 for adults and 50 cents for us children. And it was good. Got a lot to eat.
When did you first go to the Congregational Church and why?
I was 8 years old when we first started going there. I had friends that went there too. And I think that's probably what drew me to the Congregational Church. I got very involved, even as a young person. I taught Sunday school when I was maybe 18 years old.
Who was the minister when you started there?
His name was Mr. Yarrow, and that was in the old church before they built this church that's there now. Matter of fact, Grandpa and I got married there in 1951, and then about 6 months to a year later, they tore that church down and put the one up that's there now.
Were there other churches in River Edge at the time?
Yes, it was the Lutheran church down there on the road down to the railroad station. Also on Bogart Road, there was a Reformed church. I think that's Wayne Avenue, on the corner of Wayne and Bogart Road. Mr. and Mrs. Shaw went to that one.
Grandma, where did you go to eat in the 1950s?
Down on Kinnegmack Road in North Hackensack, there was a place called the Village Inn. I don't know what it's called now, it's still there. And they had the best pizza. I guess by then the diner was there too, so we'd eat in the diner.
What was the playland where McDonald's was like?
Oh, that was fun. Most of the concessions there were children's, and so Carol and your aunt and uncle, we went there frequently. It was very inexpensive too, and then of course McDonald's was right next to it, so that was fun to be able to eat there too. It was very inexpensive. I can't remember how much it was.
What were the winters like when you were a kid?
Oh, I have a memory of at the bottom of the driveway, when we had a lot of snow, we would build it up and make it into almost like an igloo, and we made a little opening and sat in there with a lot of snow for many, many winters. Did a lot of sleigh riding down Manning Avenue too. That was fun. And my mother, when we got to the top of the Manning Avenue after we finished sleigh riding, my mother made chocolate milk for all of us, hot chocolate milk. It was good.
Grandma, what were the teachers like at Roosevelt School?
Well, I remember Mr. Shetty. Don't remember what he taught us, but when the boys in the back of the class were unruly and he was angry, he would throw a yardstick at them. It never hit anybody, but and then Miss Tuzo, she wore a wig, and we always giggled about that. She was an older lady at the time, but very nice lady. We had home economics at the time, and we had cooking. There was a beautiful room in Roosevelt School where we did cooking and sewing.
Grandma, what do you remember about graduation in 9th grade?
Well, it was in the auditorium at Roosevelt School. I think there were about 30 of us in that class. It might have been more, but I think it was about that many. It took a long time from what I can remember. We had to wear long dresses, the girls, and the boys had to get dressed up in a suit and a tie. I remember that being a problem with a lot of us. My dress that I had to wear, I remember my mother paying $15 for it and thinking that was very expensive. They did play Pomp and Circumstance, and I think there was a small band that they played at the time that probably were learning musical instruments at that time.
Grandma, what was it like to have a telephone?
We were one of the few people that did have a telephone because my father worked for the telephone company. But when you picked up the telephone, it was a party line, and if somebody else was on the phone, you had to hang up and then wait a few minutes and pick it up again. Sometimes people talked a long time, and if you were in a hurry to make a phone call, you had to interrupt, which was never a good thing.
When did you get your first television?
The first television we got in River Edge was when Grandpa and I got married in 1951. My parents did not have a television, and they always came to visit us on Sunday night to watch the Ed Sullivan show, I think it was.
Grandma, what did you do without having a TV when you were younger?
Well, we had the radio. That I remember that being very important. My father liked to listen to the fights. What do they call that? The boxing fights. My mother liked to listen to the soap operas. On Saturday morning as a young child, we watched Let's Pretend, and there were a lot of children's shows on Saturday morning that we watched. I remember sitting that we listened to. It wasn't, we had no television, that we listened to on the radio.
What was your mother involved with in town?
She delivered telegrams for Western Union. The phone would ring, and it was Western Union, and then I did it for her many times, and they would dictate the telegram and where it was going to, and my mother typed it out and delivered them. Paramus, River Edge. I think it was just Paramus and River Edge.
Where did you go for your Christmas trees?
To Packard's in Hackensack, and my father would go Christmas Eve and pick out a nice Christmas tree, what was left, and it cost $1.
Did you do any babysitting in town?
Yeah, I did a lot of babysitting in town. There was one I had to babysit for that was down on Bogut Road, and so I had to walk from Manning Avenue down to Bogut Road, and she went to the movies. Her husband worked nights, and I had to be there with the children. And that was at the time when we had blackouts, so everything was closed. We had to close all the curtains and the window, the shades, and listen to the radio. There was no TV at that time. And then when she came home at midnight, I got 25 cents, and I had to walk home from Bogut Road to Manning Avenue, which was pretty late at night and dark.
What was it like to live in River Edge during World War II?
Well, I can remember rationing of food and butter. I remember that very well. It was in order to have butter, they didn't sell actual things of butter like they do now. It was in a plastic bag. It was white. It looked like Crisco, and then there was a yellow tablet that you had to massage into the white stuff, and that's what we called butter. Looked like butter, but it wasn't.
Grandma, didn't one of your Roosevelt classmates own a gas station in town?
Yes, he did. That was George Cook, and he was there for many years after high school. After we got out of high school. I think gas at the time was like 25 cents a gallon.
What was your father's first car, and how much did he pay for it?
It was a 1934 Chevy, And I remember he paid $800 for it. And both of my parents never drove a car. And so the man that sold them the car taught them how to drive. We were one of the very few people that had a car.
Grandma, was Van Soen Park around?
No, it wasn't. They were down on in Paramus, around this place, the same place as Van Soen Park is now, was a horse stable. I almost can remember the name of it, but it's not coming to me. And we would walk down there, and for 50 cents an hour, we would ride the horses. My mother didn't like that at all, that we did that.